It's the Geekly Chronicles. Please welcome your hosts, Katharine and Kes.
Hello!
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 Hello.
Oh, wow, hello. In the week where a flamingo got so sick of lockdown it escaped from Dudley Zoo with a little help from a blustery gust of wind.
In the week where you can pay $50 to have a horse Zoom bomb your dull board meeting.
In a week where a truck caught fire on a Texas interstate, burning through its highly valuable cargo of toilet paper.
And Banksy had to resort to redecorating his bathroom.
Yes, in all of those weeks, it is a very special quarantine edition of the Geekly Chronicles. Hello.
Yeah, hello. It's been about 2.5 years since we last did this.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a long time. So what's been happening while we've been off air?
Seriously, it's been what? It's been so long. I don't know. What has been happening?
Well, I don't know. I mean, every month sort of feels like a decade at the moment.
For those of you who are listening for the first time tonight, this is actually the 61st episode of the Geekly Chronicles.
61. We just haven't broadcast one for a few years.
So what was in the news? This is where we were. What was in the news when we first broadcast an episode in 2011?
2011, gosh. I mean, David Cameron had been Prime Minister of the United Kingdom for about a year, but it was back in the era of that weird Cameron-Clegg bromance thing, and long before the Edstone.
And Boris Johnson was just a quirky London mayor.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to think we'd ever picture the world we live in today back then. I mean, everything seemed so different.
And we hadn't had 2016 yet.
Oh, yes. What a year. 2016 was so rough for celebrities, news and politics that we even wrote a song asking 2017 to be nicer. Do you remember that?
It feels like 100 years ago.
I actually tried to find it to play it, but I think much like the intervening years, it has disappeared somewhere, and we're not quite sure where. But now the year is 2020, and we're back for our 61st episode. So what's new?
Well, we now have Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, with 2 seasons of Doctor Who under her rather snazzy coat.
Ah, yes. There's also so much Star Trek in production that I can barely keep up with the news. And I remember a time where there was no Star Trek in production.
No Star Trek at all. But hey, enough about the world out there. We're here to enlighten and entertain.
Yes, we have a packed show for you tonight, wherever you in the world you are listening, whether it is afternoon or evening. We hope to fill the next little bit of time with joy. It will be like filling your ears with sweet, sweet cake.
Cake. How exactly does that work?
Pretty crummy, to be honest.
We'd love to hear from you, our listeners, in the chat. So those of you tuning in live can leave messages and chat along with the show while you listen without having to leave Twitch. Yes,
indeed. And I've just seen someone say, "Cake? Where's the cake?" I apologise. The cake was a lie. Oh, geek reference. We will be joined later in the show by some very special guests, including an absolutely amazing panel set to tackle some of the current discourse around it just existing in the world as a trans person.
And we're also joined by the lovely Marna, a knitter who draws cats and then puts them into her knitting patterns. She's here to tell us about her new book, Cat Knits.
Amazing, cat knits. I almost thought you said catnip, but no. We also have some of our usual features, including Game of Geeks, and in that segment we have a very special Star Trek-related quiz.
Ooh, speaking of our usual features, didn't we do that one about fictional crowdfunding campaigns and get the listeners to vote on it or something?
Yes, we did, but I don't feel like crowdfunding ideas are very lockdown-friendly.
I think it's the supermarket workers who are our heroes right now because, well, you know what's been happening all over the world.
Well, yeah. It's been a bit intense, really, hasn't it? I mean...
Worried customers have been snapping up everything in sight.
Shelves stripped bare and there wasn't a toilet roll in sight.
Items like toilet roll and pasta are now increasingly hard to come by.
Panic buying. Panic buying. Panic buying.
Panic buying and...
Panic buying.
You don't have to buy so much. Take it easy. Just relax.
So, in the face of the global obsession with buying quantities of things that nobody else can ever get, and then with their not being able to get these things, and it's incredibly frustrating.
Not that you're bitter at all.
No, not at all. We have transformed the old feature that we called Would You Fund It? And it is now, well...
We don't want your money, but if we did, we'd spend it on stuff like this. It's Would You
Panic buying. Panic buy. Panic buying.
Panic buying and
Panic buying.
It.
The worst edit of a jingle from years ago ever there.
Yep. Would you panic buy it? Indeed.
So the way this is going to work is that we are going to present to you 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 fictional products that may help during this panic buying era and help you get through the lockdown. And during the course of the rest of the show, we would love you on our Twitch poll to have a bit of a vote on it. And then at the end of the show, we'll see which has the most results. Katharine, how can people vote?
Okay, so when we have talked you through each of our ideas, when you've heard them all, what we're going to do is post a poll, and it should come up over the screen on Twitch so that you can just simply click to vote. It might ask you to be logged in to vote. So if you don't want to log in, I'm sorry.
Well, I think it's time we heard about our first Would You Panic Buy It idea of the evening. I quite like this one.
Well, yeah, I mean, we like them all. That's why we came up with them.
All right, so this one is something I think we could all use. Let me introduce you to the Donut of Solitude. Oi, you two! Walking in single file won't destroy your relationship, you know. There's a quarantine on.
Ew! Don't get your knickers in a twist.
Fed up of strangers getting too close while out for your daily government-sanctioned exercise? Scared that fellow shoppers aren't giving you enough space while you shop for those all-essential essentials? Lockdown Labs has your back with our latest piece of wearable technology, the Donut of Solitude.
Donuts.
The Donut of Solitude provides a physical and digital barrier, not only ensuring that people stay at least 2 meters from you at all times, but strongly discouraging them to get too close again if they do.
Well, this is great. I hardly know I'm wearing it. The little box just clips onto my belt. Let's take it for a spin. Oh, what a beautiful day.
Warning, you are getting too close. You risk a shock if you come within 2 meters. Warning, you are too close. Please do not cough. You are now safe. Stranger danger has been neutralized.
Neutralised? There's smoke coming off her hoodie.
Just keeping you safe.
I think we need to talk about what stranger danger actually means.
The Donut of Solitude, keeping you inappropriately safe by scaring the germs out of anyone who dares to breach your government-mandated 2-meter fortress of personal space. Order online now.
I think I am falling in love with you.
Wait, what? So, how do you feel about that one then, Katharine?
Well, I really, really fancy donuts now.
I know, right? I am... Like, in an ideal world, right after the show, I'd do a snack run and get some donuts. But obviously, that would be irresponsible in the current climate. But, you know, I don't know. I'll maybe see if somewhere that does donuts is delivering.
Maybe, yeah.
Support our local
that's got to be the
businesses.
best way to do it.
Yeah, support my local donut house over Deliveroo or something.
But yeah, I mean, while the Donut of Solitude sounds a little extreme, I think it's a nice idea, kind of like a personal force field.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately we do need to try and maintain our distance a little more. I've been at the supermarket and kind of done the strange lockdown dance to try and keep 2 meters from people. And my very British sensibility does, I have to restrain from tutting whenever someone comes a little too close, because obviously that would be rude, but also fighting hard against my nature there.
And I sort of try and go out for a little walk around the block each day, and it's usually pretty quiet around where I live. But just occasionally you get, two people walking two abreast, and you think, oh, come on, just let me walk past without being stressed out.
Why would you walk to abreast?
I don't know. Would that be your final breastination?
Oh my gosh, that was terrible. We've had Kegs and Co in the chat say, I've been missing donuts so bad, and yeah, I concur. Very much so. I am missing it terribly. Katharine, why don't you tell us a little bit about our next Would You Panic Buy It idea?
Yeah, so this one really takes the two most topical or two most popular items at the supermarket and combines them to make something, which is far more powerful than either original product.
Now, when you first pitched this to me, it seemed like a great idea because it does combine the two things that most UK supermarkets ran out of first during the panic buying. But, I don't know, let's see what the listeners think.
Yeah.
Okay, all done. Now just Oh no, please no. Hey, can you chuck me up a loo roll, please?
That was the last one. And thanks to your snacking earlier, we're out of food too. Good work.
No food? No toilet paper? How the hell are we going to get out of this one?
Remember the good old days when we all had enough toilet paper? Me too. But those memories aren't going to help get our friends out of this sticky situation. No loo roll, no food. No loo roll, no food. Hey, wait! What if there was a handy product that could solve both of these problems in one?
Well, we've got to eat something. Which room's carpet do you think would taste nicer?
Hold that thought. Before you start munching on the rug or wiping your behind on the nearest houseplant, check out the latest quarantine-inspired innovation from Lockdown Labs. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Boil in the Bog.
It's what in the what now?
To the naked eye, it looks like any extra long, extra soft roll of toilet tissue that you'd find in your local grocery store. But there's a surprise twist.
Wait, this cardboard tube's a bit weird.
That's because it isn't cardboard. Our patented new technology puts a giant piece of wholemeal penne pasta at the core of your toilet roll, ensuring that you and your family can eat and poop without needing to break shopping cart limits.
Smells good. What you cooking?
Boil in the bog. It's full of fibre, apparently.
Boil in the Bog, keeping your bowels empty and your cupboards full throughout the lockdown. Available in all good supermarkets, pharmacies, and public toilets now.
Pass me the brown sauce. So, boil in the bog.
Boil in the bog.
I mean, it's a bit of a misnomer because you're not actually boiling it in the bog, although I suppose if the weather gets hot enough, you could potentially.
Oh dear, yeah. I'm just trying to light a fire around the base of the toilet. That's going to be quite dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, even when I used to go camping, I never lit a fire around the base of a toilet. That's quite good.
No, but seriously, it wouldn't be that difficult to replace the cardboard tube in a roll of toilet paper with a big old piece of pasta.
Well, no, I suppose you're right, actually, and it does strike me as actually quite a good idea from a less waste point of view, because actually at the moment, as much as we can recycle the cardboard tubes, we're still having to put a lot of carbon into that actual recycling process. If the tubes were just edible, if all waste were edible, like those bottles of water that come in packets that are actually made of some kind of weird fungus that you can eat afterwards. I mean,
can you eat that afterwards?
Well, I mean, I have been, and it's done no harm for me.
Okay.
Now is not the time to tell me that those are not edible. I have enough to worry about. Yeah, so I guess from a zero waste perspective, Boil in the Bog has some implications. I'm not seeing any dissenters in the chat yet, but we'll see. Nobody has turned their nose up at Boil in the Bog. But should we look at our third and final option for Would You Panic Buy It? Now, I don't know about you, but I've had to replace a lot of my regularly scheduled going out and doing stuff with meetings online. And Zoom seems to be the popular choice. And I really love the feature in Zoom where you can change the background
Yes, I saw one person had created a Zoom background of himself walking in on himself.
That's amazing. I heard that there was someone that had, like a 10-year-old who had set her Zoom background as just a picture of herself. So she then went away and played with the dog, and her teacher thought she was still there. The problem with that is you can't kind of participate in the meeting, and Zoom has that little make me look prettier option, but it doesn't really work well. And I find that on a lot of Zoom meetings, I am more distracted by the fact that I look rubbish than what's actually going on in the meeting. So the third and final pitch for Would You Panic Buy It tonight is a little addition to Zoom that I think might help make life better for all of us.
You know what it's like. Week 6 of working from home during the lockdown, and you look like crap. You're about to start your next online meeting, and while your colleagues can't see the mess all over your floor, or the fact that you're not wearing any pants, there's no way to hide your stubble, your vacant stare, or that weird paleness that your skin gets when it hasn't seen sunlight in almost 2 months. Or is there?
And as you can see from the quarterly projections, the weenus is looking set to resurge at 12.25% as the stock market is filled with bees, and the shape of the pound is... Holy cheese strings, Alex. What did you do? You look so with it.
I just enabled Zoom foregrounds.
Don't you mean Zoom backgrounds?
No, look, Zoom foregrounds lets me change my own appearance.
Not a time to shower or shave? Let Zoom foregrounds magically make it look like you just did. Hair a mess? Nose bleeding? Wishing you were actually a cat? Not anymore. With just a few simple clicks, you can alter your appearance real time in any Zoom meeting.
Hey look, I'm all sexy now.
Too bad Zoom foregrounds can't do anything about his personality.
Dang, we are just too beautiful for this kind of waffle.
Zoom foregrounds. Because right now we're all a mess, but at least we don't have to look it.
That last line is my favourite. Right now we're all a mess, but at least we don't have to look it. Well, while Katharine appears to have disappeared, are you still there, Katharine?
I am.
Oh, there we go.
Yay.
So back in the old days, Katharine and I used to do this show sat opposite each other in a studio. And it was a lovely professional studio that we had. And this is obviously the lockdown, and we are conducting this via some sellotaped together technology across a great distance. So I'm pleased that you're still there and that this is working.
Good.
So Zoom foregrounds, what do you reckon?
Zoom foregrounds. Yeah, do you think it would be able to make me look as though I'm paying attention when I'm really playing Pokemon Go?
I think it probably would, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, we had some great reactions in the chat. Tech Taste, how do you know about my lack of pants situation? Yeah, and Chloe says, I recognise that voice, and he has the perfect voice for the boss role. So I'm assuming you mean one of our lovely voice acting team that helped us with these skits. I'll make sure that gets passed on. And Josh says, love the skits so much. Oh, well, we love you all too. So there we go. Now, an interesting question looking back at Boil in the Bog. Og here says, are you boiling in the bowl or the cistern?
Well, hopefully we're just boiling the big pieces of penne pasta in a saucepan on the hob like you normally would. But I guess if I had to actually boil something in my toilet, I'd probably choose the cistern over the bowl.
Really? Because the cistern always looks really, really dirty to me. I'm quite scared to take the lid off the toilet most of the time, to be honest. I think the bowl, you could give it a good clean. If it looks clean, it's probably clean.
Yeah, but the bowl has seen action, whereas the cistern is just full of limescale, and that's no different to a kettle. You could just do a descale on the cistern, and then it'd be fine.
The bowl has seen things. Anyway, I think Zoom foregrounds is possibly my favourite because it sounds like a slightly better way to be entertaining than having a random horse show up.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't know. Now I think about it, I'm like, could life be improved by a few more random horses?
Well, yes, probably, but I don't think I want to clean up all the random horse poo.
Ooh, random horse poo. Yeah, you might be right. Yeah, we don't need that.
Exactly. So to those of you listening live, you should now see a poll pop up on your live stream. You may actually need to be logged into Twitch to vote. Sorry about that. This is like the only way we could find to do it.
Yeah, so I've just activated the poll, but like I can't see it. So yeah, let us know if that's not worked.
If it's not there,
so
tell us in the chat.
Okay, so yeah, please vote and tell us which product you would rush out to panic buy if they existed.
Yeah, and if you have a better idea for a new product that would improve our lockdown lives, then please let us know in the chat and we will share on air. Oh, well, those were some very intense skits.
Yes.
Now
it's a very intense time.
It is a very intense time, incredibly intense. So, just thinking back to the start of the show, Katharine, did you say that a flamingo had escaped from the zoo?
I think, yes, I did say that, but I think actually it got blown out of the zoo by a big gust of wind and it mostly wandered back of its own accord.
Mostly wandered back. So what, it got blown out of the zoo by a gust of wind and then it thought, oh, freedom, wait, hang on, food, and then decided to sort of trot. Do they trot? Do flamingos trot back
I
to
don't
the
really
zoo?
know. I know they kind of hang around standing on one leg, but I don't know what they do if they actually have to get somewhere. I assume they sort of trot.
A slightly embarrassing thing to admit. I actually didn't believe flamingos were real for some time.
Wow.
I know what. I know that sounds ridiculous, but so people always used to talk about pink flamingos, right? And I thought it was like a red herring. It just didn't exist.
Okay.
It was just a turn of phrase, and pink flamingos were just a lawn ornament of a fictional animal, like a unicorn or a red herring. And I genuinely did not believe they existed. And then I went to a zoo and I saw some flamingos and I sent a text message to my brother and said, oh my gosh, I had no idea these things were real. And ever since, I've not lived it down. Every couple of weeks or so, I'll get a text from my brother that's just a picture of a flamingo. It's not very nice.
But you've just told this amazing story that, I should want to, mock you about. But all I keep thinking to myself is law ornament. Law ornament.
A law ornament.
My brain is clearly broken.
Well, I think, it's a month today since the UK lockdown got announced. So, yeah, I think all of our brains are a little bit... We're all in a slightly weird place right now, aren't we?
Yep.
Og in the chat said, flamingos are birds, ergo not real. I see it. I don't quite understand. Same energy as Nintendo GS instead of Nintendogs, I guess. Tecto says they're real. Whereas Chloe just says, what? Which I'm assuming is laughter at my vague ignorance.
Yeah.
I'm going to start texting you flamingos. Yeah, well, feel free.
There are definitely worse things to receive pictures of.
Oh, yeah, like everyone sends cute cats and cute dogs. People are starting to get on the seal bandwagon. We've got like pictures of chonky boys that get sent out, like big chonky seals and things. Nobody has started the trend of sending cute flamingos, so I think we're kicking that off here on the show.
Yeah, I think like flamingos have been in for a while. So I have like a flamingo lamp downstairs in the living room, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, I don't really see a lot of pictures of flamingos going around. I don't follow a cute flamingos account on Twitter or anything.
So we've got some interesting conspiracy theories being discussed in the live chat now. Chloe says all of the birds died in 1986 due to Reagan killing them. There's obviously the US President Ronald Reagan. Obviously worldwide this must have happened, and replacing them with spies that are now watching us. The birds work for the bourgeoisie. Og says lockdown is just a cover up so they can change the batteries in the flamingos at the zoo. The birds rest on power lines to charge themselves, says Maundy Mood. That's Well, that's an incredibly interesting set of theories there.
Yeah, this is reminding me of like a throwaway line in Doctor Who about changing the batteries in the Ravens at the Tower of London. I think this could be real.
Where was that from? I don't think I remember that episode.
I think that's in The Day of the Doctor, the 50th anniversary special.
Oh, how interesting. Oh, I haven't watched that for a really long time, actually. When was the 50th anniversary? 2013?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a while since I've watched that one. I might have to have a bit of a Doctor Who watch again this evening.
Yeah, we've been watching a lot of random Doctor Who episodes because they seem to be doing all these tweet-alongs.
Well, isn't that the reason Russell T Davies joined Twitter?
I think so. Yeah, he's certainly been joining in.
Kind of joined Twitter just to do these live tweet-alongs. I saw there was one of Rose, the first episode of the new Doctor Who back in 2005, because the actor that played Clive in that was tweeting along, and I thought that was awesome as well, that even the extras and the kind of few liner characters were getting in on it.
Wow. Yeah. It's been brilliant during lockdown, actually. I mean, I've always got stuff to watch on TV, but it's always nicer. I don't know, there's something nice about sharing it with other people.
Yeah, and I think, social media is really such a huge part of keeping us all safe and sane during the lockdown. Certainly, I know that... I mean, I was a big social media user beforehand, but I am I'm probably more active and trying to spread more kindness and happy thoughts through Twitter and Instagram than I had before. Yes, I quite like. I've been on Twitter since 2008, so it's been a while.
Yeah, same. And yeah, I don't know what I'd be doing without it, really. I've been using Instagram so much more than I used to. I think because I've been doing more knitting. I've got so into the knitting scene, and everyone who knits seems to be on Instagram because I guess it's such a visual thing. Whereas, Twitter you have to look a bit harder for the knitters.
Yeah, well, and it's really interesting because I interact more with people. I love baking, and I bake a lot of bread, and I interact more with bakers on Instagram, and I interact more with nerds and my friends, probably more on Twitter. And I'm really annoyed that I don't actually have the same handle on both. I'm La Cresserelle on Twitter, which is French for the kestrel, kind of a cool thing there. But on Instagram it has to be Cresserelle La, which doesn't actually make grammatical sense, but it was the only way I could get something even vaguely similar, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah, I recently changed my Twitter to be the same as my Instagram because I wanted to be more known for knitting than other things. So yeah, I'm knitted by nails now.
Well, Scattermoon has said, it's unusual when people put positivity on Twitter. Normally we just yell at each other in despair. Cakes and Co says, spreading positivity, yeah, which is really cool. So do love that. But thinking of knitting and the other things that you've been doing, you've been doing a lot of knitting during lockdown, right?
Well, probably a similar amount to I usually do, but I've been so much more thankful for it, I think. Being able to make something pretty or just something I'm proud of, really helps get me through.
Well, I mean, you've knitted me some amazing things in the past as well, and so fantastic. But I was really quite encouraged to discover that there is actually an intersection between between knitting and politics, which is quite cool.
Yeah, I think knitters, especially in the last couple of years, have been getting, much more informed, much more active. Knitting has always been, I think for hundreds, thousands of years, knitting's always been something with a thread of activism running through it. But yeah, that's really been kind of shining out, particularly on Instagram over the last couple of years, particularly.
Amazing. And I can think of no finer segue to introduce our first guest of the evening.
You're listening to the Geekly Chronicles. It's like Fox News, only we never promised factual accuracy.
We'd like to introduce a guest from the knitting and crafting community.
Marna Gilligan makes silver jewellery, draws sinister cats, and then turns them into knitting patterns. She became an accidental political person and started the Knitters Against Brexit hashtag.
Marna, welcome to the Geekly Chronicles.
Hi there, I'm really happy to be here.
Before we get started, what pronouns do you use, Marna?
I'm happy with she, her.
Lovely. First off, I wanted to ask you about your company name. Am I saying it on Katharine Biag?
No, you're mangling it. Everybody does. It's on Katharine Biag, and it's Irish. And it never occurred to me when I was setting it up that I wasn't actually in Ireland. Most people outside of Ireland don't have any Irish. And it means the little small cat or the tiny wee cat.
Oh, getting a language lesson.
Do you want another key Irish phrase?
I'd love one.
This is the one thing that everybody who went to school in Ireland knows how to say. On bhfuil ceadagam, dul go dtí an leithreas, mór sé the hulle. And that means, can I go to the toilet, please?
Well, it's really long, isn't it? If I needed the toilet when I was 5, I'd throw my hand up and say, toilet! Getting that out, I'd have wet myself before I got to the end of the phrase.
I can't really remember. I think it was laid back a bit until you got to about 7, at which point you were expected to have mastered it.
You have a new book out right now, which is really exciting. I had a ticket to come along for the launch party. It was really sad when, I suppose quite rightly, it had to be cancelled. What's it been like launching a book under lockdown?
It's been strange. So, like you said, I had a launch party that got cancelled, and, cancelling it was obviously the right thing to do, but it was a sad decision because I had plans for cake and goodie bags and loads of people were coming. I also had a tiny book tour sorted out, so I was going to take the book to lots of yarn shops, take the samples to yarn shops and help people choose yarn for their new knit. So all of that's had to move online, really. So we did a little online party launch. So my actual cats were there rather than any in-person guests. And I did an Instagram takeover with the yarn dispensary. But yeah, it's weird. I'm trying to not feel particularly bitter about it because, it's terrible timing.
So tell us a bit more about the book. Do you have a favourite cat knits pattern?
I have a few favourites, actually. There's one cardigan in there. It's called the Big Cats cardigan. And it's this huge, big, snuggly, cozy cardigan. And it's got big intarsia cats all over it. And it's got little pockets hidden behind the cat's ears.
Oh, that's adorable.
It is. I'm really, really, really pleased with how it came out. I think it's my favourite thing from the whole book. But it was not my favourite thing to knit. It is a particularly knotty, tangly form of knitting. It's not like colour work, which I find more exciting. In terms of actually doing the knitting, I think probably the cowls are my favourite because there's a colour work cowl in there and it's just like very gentle.
I do like a cowl, just lots of round and round.
I don't even know whether you're saying cow, the animal, cowl as in a thing, or towel. I mean, I'm such a beginner. How do I get started? What do I do? I mean, we've got more time at home than we've ever had before. I feel like a new skill like knitting, this is the perfect time. But how?
I find knitting really, really good to calm my anxiety and give myself something to be grounded on. So yeah, I think you should try the knitting. Normally when I'm teaching knitting, I like to be quite hands-on. I like to show them what to do. And that's obviously not something you can do now. So I'd say maybe it could be fun to have a little knitting learning Zoom party with a friend.
Katharine, you have been knitting for a long time. I have never knitted before. What do you think? We do you try and teach me over Zoom and we invite people in to watch.
Oh my goodness.
I would be so there. That sounds like it will be hilarious.
I suppose the Knitly Chronicles. No, well, there's Nicky tutorials on YouTube. Maybe we should do Knitty tutorials. So if I'm thinking of spending some time in lockdown learning to knit, something that we're asking all of our guests, what is your number one tip for surviving lockdown? What's worked for you?
I think the internet. I don't know what state we'd be in at this stage if I didn't have the internet, because that's let me keep in touch with my partner and my friends and my family and the wider world in general. I was never particularly online type person, and now my diary is just full of Zoom meetings and tutorials and knit nights and things like that.
Yeah, I feel like I watch every person who goes live on Instagram. I'm like, yeah, I'm there.
Instagram lives have been, I used to do a very occasional one. I started doing one every Sunday just so I can go, hi.
Marna, I found all your updates around Brexit and the last general election so useful in a time of such confusion. What motivated you to start sharing on those topics?
just general frustration, I think. Definitely with the Knitters Against Brexit stuff. We had a political stalemate that didn't seem to be going anywhere. We had a government who'd pretty much lost control and they were doing dafter and wilder things. And it's quite difficult to know where I can put my political anger. So it seemed a good thing to talk about.
Yeah, so am I right in thinking you've actually run for Parliament with the Green Party, was it?
I have, yes, I have twice, in fact, in 2017, and then again just last year. I've been the Green Party candidate for Gravesham. I didn't win. I'm not sure you're not allowed to knit in the chamber, though.
I don't think I would cope with being somewhere all day that I couldn't knit. Speaking of Knitters Against Brexit, I'm currently knitting the Unity sweater by Danny Sunshine.
That is such a good pattern. I knit it last year and I cast off just in time to wear it to the count on election night.
For our listeners who might not know, the Unity sweater is a blue jumper with 12 yellow stars going around the yoke. So the stars kind of go around the neck and across the shoulders so that you look like you're dressed in a lovely European flag. And Marna makes these lovely little enamel pins, which are like cats and dogs wearing the Unity sweater. So I have to confess, I've just ordered the cat version.
Those sort of came about by accident. On Brexit Day, on the 31st of January, doesn't that feel like a long time ago? I was in such a sad, strange mood, and I was just sharing this on Instagram, as you do. I just sketched up for fun one of my little cats wearing a Unity sweater, and there was this outpouring of people going, I need this as a pin. All the profit from those cats and dogs wearing Unity sweaters is going to unaccompanied child refugees. One of the things that got dropped from the withdrawal agreement was the bit where they were like, we're enshrining in law that unaccompanied child refugees have a right to be reunited with family members.
Well, that's really wonderful.
If our listeners would like a little European cat or dog, where can they go and find one?
They can find them on my website, which is katinebjug.com. I'm sorry, that's an awkward thing to spell.
Yeah, I love all your pins. I bought them as gifts for knitters as well as kind of cat and dog lovers. Kind of a go-to when I've got somebody like that.
I really, really enjoy making them. I think the very first two I made, one of them was a bunch of cats going smash the patriarchy. And that is still one of my favourite bestsellers, which makes me really, really happy.
I really need that pin in my life.
It's in suffragette colours and everything.
Amazing. Well, I know exactly what I'm doing straight after the show. Marna, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show this evening.
Thank you for having me on. It's been lovely to come and chat knitting and cats and politics with you both. Thank you.
It's the Geekly Chronicles.
You know, Katharine, I can't believe that is the first knitter that we've had on the show. I mean, you really like knitting.
I know. I'm knitting right now.
I mean, I'm impressed that I can't hear the needles over the microphone, but we've known each other a really long time. Did you knit when we first met?
To be honest, I wasn't really knitting much then. It wasn't a great time for me. And getting back to knitting over the past few years has been so good for me. I think it really took the idea of Christmas tree scarves to kick my knitting mojo into touch.
What was the first tree scarf that you made?
So it all started with the Doctor Who scarf. I thought it would be fun to have a really long and really skinny version of the iconic scarf worn by Tom Baker's Fourth Doctor and use it to decorate my Christmas tree instead of tinsel.
Yeah, I mean, it's a novel idea. I remember when you first did that, I first thought, a tree scarf. And then it sort of just made so much sense. I mean, tinsel sheds everywhere. It doesn't really make a statement. You also made me an amazing trans flag tree scarf, proving that knitting and allyship can in fact go hand in hand.
Totally, I hope so. I remember I felt really weird about J.K. Rowling's behaviour towards the end of last year. I was selling a Harry Potter themed version of the tree scarves on my Etsy shop at the time that she made those horrible tweets. It really just wasn't possible to carry on hoping that she wasn't a TERF. I felt really uncomfortable to be making a profit selling things that were based on her work. So after Christmas was done and I'd kind of sold the scarves, I looked at what I'd made selling them, the Hogwarts themed ones, and then I donated as much as I could afford to mermaids. We can choose how we respond to negative things. And I thought, well, I can either just sort of sit and stew and feel uncomfortable, or I can do a little something to not to put it right, because nothing's going to do that, but just to put something nice out into the world, as well as whatever J.K. Rowling's putting out.
Yeah, I was so perplexed, I think, along with many trans Harry Potter fans, when J.K. Rowling finally shed the mask. It had been a question mark for a long time, and it became harder and harder to deny that she probably wasn't an ally to the trans community. And the way that you responded to that made me, as a trans person, super happy. And I'm not just saying that because you're my best friend. I'm saying that because I thought it was an amazing thing to do. And Scattermoon in the chat has said props for that decision. Ash has said, brilliant. I hope you let J.K. Rowling know. I'm not entirely sure if J.K. Rowling reads any fan mail anymore, but it might be worth sending one.
Yeah, could do. I saw a lot of other people. I follow on Instagram a lot of yarn dyers. So people who, take yarn and dye it into all sorts of beautiful
all the
colours
that people do that I had no idea existed.
Yeah, so lots of people dye yarns and they're inspired by the Harry Potter books. There's loads of like Gryffindor yarns and stuff out there. And I've seen a lot of them say that they're either, discontinuing those yarns, they're changing the names, or they're now donating significant portions of what the money that comes in from those to charities. So that's kind of warmed my heart to kind of see that from the knitting community.
Yeah, and I think just like Marna was saying, and talking about knitting and activism going hand in hand sometimes, I think ultimately we can all make a statement with the things that we do, right? I mean, you and I used to host this show, and I think probably as time went on, it got more political and we felt more able to speak our minds. And this show tonight has the fun and it has the serious, and it's a way of us being able to put some good out into the world, hopefully too. And I feel that's in a very similar vein. And KT is Satan. What a lovely screen name that is in the chat, has just said. I'm just happy that J.K. Rowling showed her true colours. I guess it is nice to know where we stand.
Yes, just being left wondering. It's a bit frustrating, isn't it?
But I'm glad that you've been able to make something positive out of it and keep knitting cool things. I mean, it seems weird for me to think of you now without knitting growing out of your arms.
It is a very big part of my life. It's sort of a bit of a safe space for me as well. I find it really easy to beat myself up for not being productive. So knitting means I'm always producing something. So it's something that in no way drains me. It's like breathing in and out. I just sit on the sofa, I chill out, and at the end of it, I've got a thing that I've knitted. So,
well, and I don't think I'd want to live in a world where we had to be productive all the time. And I've known you for a long time, and I think I'd be very worried if you particularly were productive all the time.
I know that would be so strange. But kind of with that in mind, I've been trying to do little things to move my career in the direction of kind of knitting and yarn. But it's a very slow process, especially under lockdown. But what can you do?
Well, speaking of sitting and chilling out, am I the only one, a slight change of subject here, am I the only one that has got a little bit bored of every single Spotify playlist that they've ever made whilst being stuck at home or going for their daily mandated government-sanctioned exercise?
I don't know. You could always listen to more podcasts.
Oh, like this one.
But it's true that new music is going to be thinner on the ground whilst artists are unable to get into studios.
Well, I might have a solution to this little problem.
Oh no, I never like it when you get creative.
Why is that?
Because it usually means I have to play a kazoo.
Don't worry, not this time. Do you remember back when compilation albums were all the rage? There was like classical chill out and, possibly the best this and, driving things. And now that's what I call potato farming music, etc., etc.
Yeah, like air guitar and stuff like that. Yeah, I love a good digital mixtape.
Well, yeah, and on places like Spotify and Apple Music, you've still been able to get those mixtapes and albums and things like that. So I think maybe it's time for a new type of compilation album.
Running out of things to listen to while you're stuck at home? All those songs on your happy playlist reminding you of the times that you used to be able to go outside? Lockdown Labs Records presents the best lockdown album in the world, ever.
People wanna panic buy, running down the length of the aisles. Corona, oh, you cough and touch your face, worried that you're gonna give me Corona.
All your favorite songs from across the decades with a new world order twist.
What the world needs now is PPE. That's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is PPE. No, not just for some, but for everyone. Doctor, give me the news. I got a bad case, a persistent cough, being hot to the touch with a constant headache and slow labored breathing. Let me take you by the hand and walk you through the streets of London just for an hour, or we're going to get a fine. Oh, Karen, you came and you spoke without listening, and now you're causing a scene. Oh, Karen, you think it's a slur when we mention you, but girl, you're only a meme. Oh, Karen, it's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world. Wait, hang on a second. I haven't had to change a single word in this one. I feel fine. That's so awful.
The best lockdown album in the world, ever. Coming soon to a streaming platform near you. This album is not an album, it's a bag of type of cheese, except it's not actually a type of cheese. It's a boat, but not the kind on water, but the kind that floats on the lakes of solitude in your mind. Wait, hang on, I lost the script. Oh yeah, this album is available everywhere except anywhere. Please listen responsibly.
Yeah, so...
What did you do?
Why not?
Oh.
I think
everyone in the chat seemed to like it.
People like the Karen song, especially.
Oh, Ash Brockwell says, "I need this album."
Well, okay. Well, I might have to clear my week to actually record the full versions.
Maybe we should have included this in Would You Panic Buy It?
As Katharine says, "Oh, I should have known." Yeah, sorry. It's a predictable feature of singing on a Geekly episode. If you've been a regular listener in the past, you will not have been surprised by that statement.
Oh, Tech Taste, shut up and take my money.
See, personally, it's the PPE one. We really do need more of it.
We really do. You know, the album's in jest, but
we really do.
Yeah.
But I suppose maybe there's a chance I'll run out of songs to write parodies of sooner or later.
No, never going to happen.
Well, who knows? But anyway, I've been looking at other ways to place my creative talents out into the world.
Oh, do tell.
Well, you've got your knitting and various other people do really great things. But I don't know if you've heard of the 2.6 challenge.
It sounds a bit familiar, but I need you to tell me more.
So when all of the everythings got cancelled or postponed, a lot of things that couldn't go ahead were things like marathons, park runs, all of the stuff that would get people raising money for charity. And unfortunately, that means that UK charities are really having a tough time when it comes to funding at the moment. And the government has promised some money to UK charities, but in true government style, it's nowhere near enough. So the people behind the London Marathon have put together this 2.6 challenge. And the whole idea is that you do something. Cause a marathon is 26 miles. Key bit of information there to make the 2.6 make sense. And the idea is that at some point you sign up to raise money for something involving the number 2, 6, 2.6 or 26 in some way, shape or form, and get sponsored to do that. And that money can go to a charity of your choice, much like you'd pick a charity to run the London Marathon for or something.
Nice. I think that sounds like a good idea.
What would you do if you had to do something? Would it be knitting related?
Probably would, yeah. I wonder how many stitches are in a tree scarf. I know I did calculate it once, but I cannot remember what the number was. It wasn't as many as I thought it would be, and that disappointed me.
Oh.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe just knit 26 things.
Oh, that's quite a good idea. Knit 26 things in 26 minutes.
They'd be very tiny things.
Well, I started thinking about what I could do. I really wanted to raise some money for a number of different charities, and the 2.6 challenge seemed like too good an opportunity to pass up. So I started thinking 2.6, 26, 2.6, what can I do? I'd considered, I'm not really a huge fan of exercise, I'll be honest with you. I'll do my daily government-mandated walk. Don't ask my housemates. They will not confirm that I actually go and do them. But I thought, well, could I walk up and down the stairs 26 times? And I just thought, well, I could, but, you know...
It's a bit boring.
Well, and I feel like the more extreme you go, the more money you might raise. And I really want to raise some money for charities here. So I thought, I'm going to see if I can raise £2,600 by doing a 26-hour live stream where I will stay awake for that entire time. I've read all the articles to prepare. But during those 26 hours, I am going to write 26,000 words of a fiction story.
What?
Now
that's like doing half of NaNoWriMo in a day.
Yes, essentially. And I've done NaNoWriMo before. So NaNoWriMo, for those listeners that don't know, is the National Novel Writing Month, although it's not national, it's international. And you aim to write a 50,000 word story in a month. And it's hard. But you don't tend to spend all day every day doing it. What I am intending to do is I'm going to stream the whole thing live on Twitch. And I'm going to take plot suggestions in the Twitch chat the whole time. There will be, one of the videos will be of my screen. I use writing software called Scrivener, so I'll be tapping away in that. Another window will be a view of my hands on the keyboard, so you can see the smoke rising. And I'm just going to write. I'm going to come in with a few ideas about how to start the story, but really whoever drops in and donates during the stream will be able to direct the flow of the story. And I'm hoping that will help me hit my £2,600 target. But I think it'll be really interesting as well. And Og in the chat has said, Twitch plays book writing. It is essentially that. It is, so a novel is 50,000 words, so it's going to be just over half a novel. So it will technically be a short story or a novella. I'm not going to do any spell checking, but I am going to publish the results completely free online afterwards so anyone can download it and read it. And it will be this weird, organically grown story that has come together over the course of 26 hours. So it's going to be a bit weird.
Yeah, I guess if I come in at hour 8, I'm not going to know everything that's already happened. So if I make a suggestion, that's that could be really strange. Do you think you'll do like a little recap maybe at the top of every hour or something? Or is it just going to be nope?
Well, I mean, essentially, I'm going to have to try and write 1,000 words an hour. And I've managed that before, but only when writing waffle to pad out assignments, which is not how I recommend you write assignments, incidentally.
No.
But I think ultimately I'm going to have to play it by ear and see how it goes. I'm going to need a cushion. I'm going to have to try and work out a way to get a constant supply of food. But I absolutely am not able to use lorem ipsum or copy and paste in any filler text. It has to be all original words. So it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of this. And yeah, I think giving a bit of an update at the start of every hour, reacting to people in the chat. I mean, if I suddenly get like 10 more viewers, I'll probably talk about what's going on. And I think as a writer, it's kind of important that you recap every now and then. Otherwise, the names of the characters will completely change between the start and end of the story. And that's never good.
No.
I mean, unless the name change is intentional.
I guess that could form part of the screen, almost like, the top characters or something. Or a little word cloud with what are the words most used or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's loads of really cool stuff I could do there, but also I think a lot of the more complicated Twitch streams that you see have a couple of people working behind the scenes on the visuals and things. And obviously, this is lockdown. We are all isolating in our homes, and I just don't have, I can't pull together a little team to help me with this challenge. So it's going to be a bit bare bones, but it should be quite fun. Reactions in the chat are quite interesting.
Yeah, mouth cam for what you're eating.
Hand cam, ear cam. I'm not quite sure why we'd have an ear cam. Josh's idea of donate for character name changes. I like that. So I think I might
you could
well
donate
do that.
to get included in the story.
Yes, I love that idea. I'm gonna steal that. I think if you want to have a cameo in the story, then you have to donate. And donate like more than a tenner. So I think that would be really, really cool. Yeah, I think it's going to be quite fun.
Oh, an ear cam because you were going to play it by ear.
Right. Yeah, that's funny.
Oh dear. So when is this taking place?
It is next weekend, actually. So from 7 p.m. on Friday the 2nd. Is it Friday the 2nd? Friday the 1st? Friday the 2nd of May. I'm going to check the calendar just to be on the safe side. But I'm doing it from 7 p.m. on the Friday to 9 p.m. on the Saturday. So it's actually Friday the 1st of May.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
It's Friday the 1st of May at 7 p.m. So just under a week. And I will be coming towards the last hour of this challenge exactly a week now. Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting.
Definitely. Oh, Chloe's PJs is asking, where's the donation link?
So if you go
we need to pop that in the chat.
Yep, and it's justgiving.com/fundraisers/ or /fundraising, sorry. justgiving.com/fundraising/write, WRITE, 26K. Do that and go there, and you've got the whole story and everything there. And I will be primarily raising money for Mermaids, who are a charity, for those that don't know, that look after and support transgender children and young people and their families. And I think right now that's even more important than ever. Have you seen, Katharine, some of the news this week?
Yes, yeah, I have. News from Liz Truss, our Equalities Minister. Not good news.
Quote unquote Equalities Minister.
Yeah.
Yes, and so I'm very, very, very pleased that we have this feature now, this set of guests coming up, because I think as well as doing what I can do to raise money for an important cause and an important charity, it's important to hear trans voices on this issue, and so that leads us very nicely on to our next set of guests.
You're listening to what was it again? The Geekly Chronicles, and you'd get it in the end.
Now, life in lockdown is hard for a lot of us, but for the LGBTQ plus community, and trans folks in particular, it presents a fresh set of challenges. Combine that with a tightening of laws and a negative change to government rhetoric on trans issues, it's an interesting time for trans folks like me. But rather than just talk about my own opinions, Katharine and I thought it might be great to invite some friends from the wider trans community over for a virtual cuppa and a chat by the fire. So while Katharine gets the custard creams, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Ben Saunders, Jane Fay, V. Wegman, and Jacob Edwards. Welcome to the show, everyone!
Hello.
You are all so unbelievably amazing. Why don't you introduce yourselves to our lovely listeners?
Yeah, I'm Ben. I use he, him pronouns. I'm an activist and filmmaker.
Hi, yeah, I'm Jane Fay. I'm she, her, or occasionally when I'm feeling particularly elvish, I'm Fay Fair. I'm a writer, occasional stand-up, and probably just about does it.
Hi, I'm Jacob Edward. I use they, them pronouns, and I am a radio presenter. I was the first non-binary person to present a show on Radio 1.
I'm V. Wegman. I use they, them pronouns. If you can't tell from my accent, I'm a Midwestern American, and I had the absolute fortune of being a 3-time NASA intern. I am currently furloughed at the Carnegie Science Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
So, I've never been an intern at NASA, but I have noticed that in my own experience, there's a huge crossover of trans people and techie people. My first question to you all is, would you consider yourself a geek? And what are you the most geeky about?
I'm not totally sure what you mean by geek. I'm not incredibly techie, but I've always seen myself as a bridge, a sort of crossover between tech and non-tech. I suppose I do get quite geeky about stats, statistics, because I've written a couple of books on the subject. And my main focus is the intersection of IT and the law, where I think the government's not just got it wrong, but is actively doing damage to the LGBT community.
Wow, I mean, that's incredible. And I would say that definitely qualifies as a geeky passion.
Oh, damn.
I'm not sure if I'd describe myself as a geek, but I think in some ways a little bit of like a nerd. I'm not with tech, but with like history. I collect a lot of like old photos and like old newspapers and stuff like that. So if that qualifies me to be like a nerd geek in some way.
100%. It is a main part of my personality. Not just space, but I'm very geeky about Star Wars, animation, art in general. I'm definitely a fan of history as well. But yeah, anything science, and that includes the art of science. I'm a big fan of the creative side of science, and that's why I do what I do.
I am 100% a geek, whether I like to admit it all the time or not. I love a bit of sci-fi, me. I used to live for Star Wars, Doctor Who, all that kind of thing. And I still do. I still dabble in it, but I'm not like a hardcore geek. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm just existing in a plane of geekiness constantly.
Oh, wonderful. Obviously, this is a tough time for the LGBTQ plus community and trans people in particular. What are your tips for coping during these strange times?
So something that helped me when I was feeling somewhat isolated, younger in my coming out phase, growing up in a small town with not much of an LGBTQ community at all. While I am back in that hometown right now, it is easier for me to connect to the community through the glorious internet. So I highly suggest getting involved in social communities. Back then I used Tumblr. Now I think Twitter has sort of taken on that role of being a source of community, and we have Discord as well to find community there. So finding a virtual community, that is my best advice. As much self-care as you can by giving yourself as much compassion and forgiveness.
That's lovely.
Food. So much food. What I've been doing is just eating constantly. All the snacks, all the Easter eggs.
Well, yeah. I mean, my own take on this is, I suppose I have some perspective because I'm ancient and so on. So I've seen where we've come from, and I'm also very aware that a lot of what's going on right now is hot air. It's people talking and making themselves feel good about being anti-trans. But what I would say to younger members of the trans community, look at what you've done. Not necessarily any individual, but Just stop and take stock. And no one of you have done it all. All of you together, you are strong, you are proud. And yes, sometimes we fall back. There's always somebody else to pick up the flag and move forward. And together, you never are truly defeated. And that's what I believe.
Oh, I felt that. Thank you, Jane.
That's so beautiful, Jane.
I think as well, like Twitter is like a big thing for me at the moment, like particularly at the moment, because it's kind of like a support network and kind of it's just such a supportive environment if you choose the right kind of side of Twitter, especially like in isolation at the moment. Like Twitter and things is one of the only ways that I'm kind of being addressed with like the correct pronouns and things a lot at the moment is quite helpful and quite supportive.
Yeah, Twitter has certainly been a lifeline for me over the years, far more so, I would say, than any other social network. Thank you, Ben, for reminding us all. Let's change the tone slightly. While the world at large may have missed it, very few trans people will have escaped the recent announcement from Liz Truss, the UK's Equalities Minister, that she plans to restrict the rights of trans young people in the UK. I wonder if you'd all share your thoughts.
Oh, well, this is just fringe ministers and politicians playing with anti-trans rhetoric because it wins them some brownie points on the wilder reaches of the Christian right. It worries me, but I'm not that worried because so far I don't think there's any substance to this, any meat. But it is causing people to be scared, and I think that if government cared, ministers need to engage their heart and their brain before they spout absolute nonsense like this.
I think it's awful, but I am not surprised. I felt like something like this would happen. I know something's been going on in Brazil quite recently with regard to trans rights, and it just seems like the thing that they're doing now that there's a global crisis, they're like, we can slip this in under the carpet and nobody will notice. So that was my initial thoughts, was just feeling sick and not knowing how to help or what to do.
I only just turned 18 back in October. If I'd been born like a year or two later, then this would be directly affecting me rather than indirectly. I think after having read what she said and things, like it seems very contradictory. Like she said at one point, like she wants trans people to feel safe from like harassment and hate crime and things, but at the same time coming out and saying like, oh, we're gonna take away this for young trans people and this and things, it sends a message completely to the public because now we're having, in quotation marks, debates, and that in itself makes all trans people not safe from harassment. If you look at wider healthcare, under 16, you're given control of your body in terms of like contraception, cosmetic surgeries and things, like in quite a few ways. And if you start to take away that control and that rights for young trans people, then that's almost like set a dangerous precedent and like a slippery slope in a way to taking it away from everybody. So it's quite scary for everything, really.
Yeah, I think this does feed into what I wanted to say, which is, firstly, there's an enormous amount of media misinformation. But the other thing which I think people need to say, and absolutely need to be calling her out on, is this is a stalking horse. This is a stalking horse for something else, for Christian right, for those people who want to clamp down on the rights of younger people and who want to clamp down on the right of women to control their own fertility. And I think what people need to do, I will be researching this, but if anyone else gets there before me, they're free to do so. Look at her record on abortion. She's very, very cagey about it. And the point is, if you strip away rights from young trans people because you don't want them taking what she would call irreversible decisions, what then happens to young people's rights to contraception? What happens to young people's rights to abortion? And my own take is that this is a very, very dangerous, very right-wing agenda to roll back rights that young women particularly have managed to achieve.
As someone looking at the UK from the outside and obviously having to deal with a whole different set of laws and prejudices in your own country, how does this feel to you?
It seems slightly discouraging. I will say, though, that it has not made major news over here. However, being as involved in the online community as I am, I have seen much about it, and I did read her brief and gave it quite a bit of thought and read a lot of my mutual Twitter folks, their responses, and what they've said, especially coming from Equalities Minister. incredibly discouraging. And as you said, Ben, the logic is a fallacy. It's all well and good to promote the consent aspect of things. However, in this case, it is far more dangerous to revoke any sense of consent and choice. Harping on what you said, Jane, giving that choice to what you can do with your body. Having someone who's supposed to be your cheerleader in the ministry not supporting your freedom in that, it's scary and disappointing.
Thank you for sharing all those amazing thoughts. It feels weird to have to say this, but surely our rights should be respected the world over, right? But between what's happening in the UK, the rise of Viktor Orban's right-wing regime in Hungary, and the general disparity of trans rights across the United States and the world in general, there's a lot for us to think about right now, isn't there?
There's so much to think about. I don't even know how to comprehend the hate towards us. I don't quite understand why people hate us. What's the threat? I mean, we are just people trying to live our lives authentically, and it's already hard enough.
Yeah, it's an odd one. I get quite involved in politics, what goes on in Italy and some parts of Europe. And next week, Italy will be celebrating the end of Mussolini. And those who know their history will know that he ended very badly indeed. And Europe has a habit of dealing with dictators and dealing with far-right people. And they don't end pleasantly. And I look around, the one which really worries me right now is Orban in Hungary. But however bad Orban is and his attempt to outlaw being transgender, my suspicion is he's beginning to reach the end of his sell-by date. It may sound melodramatic. When it comes, it's going to come very quickly, and he may not be standing at the end of it, because he's pursuing policies which are based on pure hatred. The populace don't see an issue with trans people, but he has picked on us as a way of going along with a far-right agenda. I think it'll end badly for him.
Thank you, Jane. That is a really interesting point. The distinction between ignorance and out-and-out transphobia is a really interesting one to look at in general. I think it's safe to say that we've all experienced our fair share of both. Which do you find that you have to deal with more on a day-to-day basis?
I have encountered the transphobia on a number of occasions, but I wouldn't say it's like a day-to-day thing. Like, the majority of people don't care. But one thing I have found quite a lot is that just generally on a day-to-day basis, a lot of people just don't know. They might misgender me, but it's not because, they're transphobic. It's just because they actually don't know. Like, they've never heard of what it is or met someone who's trans or know quite what to say, or then they overthink it and say the wrong things and whatever. But I think from my perspective, in this country, there's a big issue of people not being educated on what it is, so not understanding. So therefore, for example, if there's like wrong information put online or on TV or whatever, then they're more likely to believe that if that's all they're hearing.
And V, how does that match with things in your part of the world?
Yeah, mine is pretty close to Ben's in that, I'm an AFAB person and I get misgendered often, especially as a non-binary trans person as well. Explaining the they, them pronoun thing is still quite a challenge for me. I've only really known about non-binary people as an existence for the past 4 years and immediately found a sense of community with that identity, and still trying to keep up with correcting people is quite difficult. So facing transphobia is not as violent as it could be for me, and certainly in my job, I have a very lovely set of coworkers that have never given it any sort of thought as to be negative about it and have only been supportive. So I've been quite fortunate in that sense, where I have not faced violent transphobia. It's just been small things like using women's restrooms, which is my preference, being asked to leave or being yelled at by moms, those small things, but that hasn't happened in a little while at this point.
I have a feeling it's mainly ignorance from the LGBT community or the LGB community, cis LGB people. A lot of people that worked at Gadio before me hadn't met a non-binary person before, let alone had one on air. So that was a whole thing. I remember it was quite a thing just having presenters throw forward to me and being like, here's Jacob, he's on air next. And I'm like, no, that's not how we do that. It took a lot of time. I remember like clearly when the emails started going out about new presenters and new shows, and even the current crisis, they've put every presenter's pronouns on all the emails now. So it's like whenever you're throwing forward, you've got that there, and it's such a good step forward.
Oh, thank you, Jacob V. There are some really great points there about acceptance from employers. Time and time again, I see online fellow trans people getting asked to educate and explain their own existence. How do you feel about that? Is it our responsibility?
I think it's very problematic. It shouldn't be our job, but I end up thinking, if not us, who the hell is going to do it? Because I write extensively, because I'm a trustee of Transmedia Watch. I look at the media, and the media has given over to pure sensationalism. It's all about clickbait, and it's all about making money by riling people up. That is exactly the problem of what I was alluding to earlier with the Liz Truss story. We have one of the major national news networks in the UK suggesting that part of this story is about trans people no longer being able to get, or her trying to stop trans people from getting gender reassignment surgery before the age of 18. It's utter nonsense. The problem is that we are a quite small minority in terms of active components, we are here trying to combat that against the entire weight of the national press. It's very difficult.
It's tiring. It's quite sad that it's one of those things where it just is a part of being trans in a way, having to kind of answer those questions for people because you kind of feel as if, well, if I don't, then who will? One of the things that upsets me quite a bit sometimes is if I encounter someone, a mutual friend or someone who misgenders me, or like on a number of occasions, or generally a bit like ignorant to trans identities, and if that person isn't called out by like the people that I'm with or something, then I feel like it's my responsibility to then have to correct them, and that is quite tough. It's just quite tiring. It's nice to have someone else stand up for you every so often and kind of do that job for you, because when you get misgendered, it's like getting slapped in the face in a way, because you don't have anything to say back to it. So you either just take it or hope that someone else says something for you. But yeah, it is quite tiring having to always be like a spokesperson and kind of make sure that what you're saying is somehow reflective of every single trans person in the whole country. And it's quite a weight.
I'm so bad at educating people. I mean, I feel like people think I'm speaking on behalf of everyone else, and I'm not. I'm literally speaking from my own experience. And that's especially true for non-binary people, because we're all so different. There's just not one way to describe being non-binary. Like, somebody else's definition is different to mine, and I'm not entirely sure how to put my existence into words at the best of times. And so being asked to educate people is really tough. Like, when I had finally come to terms with me being non-binary and using they them pronouns, I couldn't actually say it to my parents. I literally had to send them an email with 3 articles about non-binary people. These articles were brilliant. They described it perfectly, but I just couldn't do that. I still couldn't put it quite into words that they would understand. I needed them to listen to the articles, read them, and digest them before speaking to me, because I was just like, I don't know. I don't really know how to educate people.
Well, I'm sure, Jacob, you're not alone in having come out via letter. And educating even the best LGBTQ plus ally is hard, especially if you're related to them. So let's talk a little about allies for a second. How important do you think they are to helping make the world safer for trans adults, trans young people, and our broad intersectional community in general?
We can't build visibility without their support. Otherwise, we're just this tiny little coalition of people shouting for acceptance, and we can't get acceptance without people outside our bubble. Yeah, we just want to be ourselves and be able to be ourselves within the larger community of anywhere, being able to exist without persecution or question.
For starters, if we had allies in the actual government, they wouldn't be trying to pass laws to try and restrict our rights. I think that's a pretty good place to start, because as an ally, you are there to support a community, even though you're not necessarily a part of that community. You are there to uplift them and protect them with things like laws. So being an ally in the government, very important, but also being an ally in real life, just correcting people when somebody gets misgendered. I've had people tell me so many times of just failings of people to stand up for trans people being misgendered. Even in LGBT spaces, like, people get misgendered, and if you don't stand up for your trans friends, sometimes it's not always something that they feel they can do. I am shocking at correcting people when they misgender me. Even though this is my identity and I've been out for years, it's still really, really tough.
Oh, absolutely. I have two thoughts about allies. The first is that allies are absolutely needed, but the second is they need to understand what it is they're signing up for and what it is that we want, because there is also a sort of bad ally phase that people can go through where they get a little bit out of control. And I think that can be problematic. I have seen allies start to lecture trans people about, well, what you should really be doing is this, and what you need is this. And that it's bad enough having to put up with the people who don't like us, who hate us even. When people are supposedly on your side start telling you what to do, then I think that is even worse.
Obviously, like, allies are great, but I think it's important for allies to kind of use their platform as an ally to give a voice to trans people, to kind of listen to what would actually help trans people, and, like, for instance, correcting people when you get misgendered, or standing up for the things that you're trying to stand up for but you're not being heard about. I think it's important to not shout over trans people as an ally.
Thank you all so much for your thoughts on these really important but really hard-hitting topics. I'm sure it's brought so much hope to so many of our trans listeners. And thinking of positivity, I'd really like to move on now and talk about some of your favourite trans success stories in the world right now. What have you seen that has really warmed your heart lately?
I have a good one. I live in Pennsylvania, and my Secretary of Health for the Pennsylvania state government is the one leading our COVID-19 response, and she is a trans woman. Her name is Dr. Rachel Levine, and she has done an absolute fantastic job. Dr. Rachel Levine has been wonderful and been a very steady source of confidence and information for not just Pennsylvania, but has been used across the U.S. for better health and risk information, and she happens to be a trans woman. It's wonderful. It makes me proud of my state.
Yeah, I've got a success story, and it's a lesson, I think. Success story, it's from Australia, and there the usual suspects agitating. They want an inquiry into trans healthcare, particularly of trans children. And this week, the Australian Health Minister said no, that they would support medics in giving proper individual care to people, but it was not the government's role to be stepping in and carrying out any sort of inquiry like this. That is in sharp contrast to the likes of Liz Truss that we were talking about earlier. It's also, I think, a very good lesson in how to stop this sort of thing, because what we've seen over the last couple of years with the Gender Recognition Act is the government made this vague announcement they were going to do something about it, and then they didn't really do anything. They just created a vacuum. I think what is very clear is that when government does make a clear statement about what it wants to do, then it does shut down a lot of the hatred.
Well, something that I've been involved in is this little thing called the validation station. And Kestrel, I'm going to call you the project lead on this, because you sort of took the idea and ran with it. And then we got a whole team going. And it's just an incredible little service which sends a text message to a trans person or a cis person with their name and pronouns. And it's just a cute little affirming message every single day, just to remind them that their identity is valid. It's okay to be trans, because it can be really hard, especially if you're living with parents that aren't supportive, or family, or even housemates that aren't supportive of your identity. It's just good to hear your name and pronouns used in a sentence at least once a day.
Last but not least, a bit of a cliche question right now, but hey, what is your absolute top tip for surviving and thriving during the lockdown?
My mantra has been practicing relentless compassion, not just for your fellow human beings and other inhabitants of this planet, but for yourself, especially during this time. Forgiving yourself if you're not being uber productive during this time. And if in fact, you are feeling miserable, you're allowed to feel miserable, especially right now. We are in a miserable time. Give yourself the compassion that you would your best friend for having a rough day or a rough month, as it has been a very, very rough month.
I totally concur with that. I think I cheat a little bit because I'm finding it quite comfortable, and that's partly because I spent a lot of time trying to say I want to step back and do less of certain things, and this has made me do that. Don't set yourself ludicrous objectives, and the other thing, which is an absolute godsend, is share your life with a cat.
I said food earlier, but my other top tip is stay connected. You never know what somebody's going through, and so you texting them on that day might give them that sort of ray of sunshine that they needed. So just stay in touch with people, even if you're just acquaintances. Keep in touch. Just drop them a little message now and again.
I'm pretty much the same, being kind to yourself. I've been doing this thing where I have like a little notebook, and at the end of each day, like just before I go to sleep, no matter how good or bad the day's been, I've been forcing myself to write down like one positive thing from that day, even if it was like the worst day and all I did was like have a shower.
Jane, Ben, V, Jacob, thank you all so much for joining us and being a part of the show this evening. Just before you go, where can our listeners find you online if they'd like to keep up with you after the show?
Twitter's probably the easiest. I mean, if you're polite and nice to me, I might then from Twitter give you other details, but like I said, being nice and polite helps. It's Jane Faye, Janefae. There is no Y in Faye, despite the fact everyone keeps trying to put a Y in there.
My Twitter is Ben Saunders 44. That's probably easiest.
Yeah, my Twitter is at VWEGS, so VWEGS.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram. In fact, it's on everything at It's Jacob Edward.
Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Oh, wow. That was amazing. As a cisgender person and hopefully a reasonable trans ally, it's really great for me to have been able to hear all of that. It really makes me want to give you a big hug more than ever.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, that's awesome. And as soon as this period of distancing and isolation is over, I will be more than happy to receive a big hug from you. I mean, as a trans person, it warms my heart to have some of my trans siblings on the show to talk about things from their perspective. We might all be transgender, but we are totally unique and individual people too. Except perhaps me and Jacob, we have a ridiculous number of similarities, particularly using food to cope during the lockdown.
We've had some amazing reactions and responses in the Twitch chat too.
Oh, it's been incredible. Thank you, people, for sharing all of your thoughts. Kegs & Co. says, "Hi, Ben. You're a Mersey marvel."
Oh, that's nice.
I would say Mersey is a place, right?
I imagine Merseyside.
Yeah, I mean, I have lived in the north of England, and yet my geography is terrible.
So probably sort of, I associate the Mersey with Liverpool.
Yes, and Ben's accent was certainly more of the north.
Yes. Lots of good points as well. Trans refugees in Kenya are facing huge discrimination too.
And Ash has shared another fantastic resource here that we should mention. Reconnecting Rainbows has a Trans Allies campaign. They have they say life-saving allies, and they say L equals look at people, I equals identify us by the right name and pronoun, F equals find out what we support and find out what support we need, and E is empower yourself to help us end transphobia. And that's really nice. I quite like that.
That's nice. I'm going to check that out.
Tech Taste says that Jane's stand-up is very good. I have to find out when Jane is next doing some stand-ups that I can go along and take a look. Obviously, once the current lockdown is over.
Yes. Well, once we don't have to be 2 meters apart at all times.
Yes, and Tech Toast also says no hugs. Please stay 2 miles apart. I think the social distancing has just been very much upgraded there from 2 meters to 2 miles.
Wow.
So again, I mean, just a huge thank you to our panel for coming on. You are all absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing your time with us this evening. And the panel in its entirety will be available as a separate clip online on our Mixcloud and YouTube after the show, but also will be a part of this show recording that will be available from tomorrow. So you'll be able to listen back to that, and I will probably send the link to that out to so many other people in the trans community that I think could benefit from the amazing words that V, Jacob, Ben, and Jane gave us. So yeah, just I'm blown away. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us this evening.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Now, you know what I love about this refreshed and relaunched special of the Geekly Chronicles, aside from the amazing panel we've just had and a fantastic Marna that we had on earlier as well.
No, Kes, what is that?
Well, there's been no hostility or competition going on. No kind of huge tension.
No. Oh, yes. It's time to revive the coolest of competitions.
Oh, gosh.
Presenter versus presenter. Geek versus geek. It's a showdown of... Well, it's a showdown. It's Game of Geeks.
Now, back when we used to do a Geekly show every other week, this section of the show was dedicated to something called Game of Geeks.
It was a bit of a nerd-off between the two of us, where we'd go head-to-head and see who could take the prize as the ultimate geek.
I kicked your butt up and down that studio, unless there was a kazoo involved, of course.
Yes, you did. But it's all to play for tonight. We've all been binging on shows during the lockdown, and both Katharine and I have been filling up quite nicely on Star Trek.
Oh my god, if you've not seen Picard yet, wow.
And so to test what we've both learned during our time at Starfleet Academy, it's time for a very special Star Trek edition of Game of Geeks.
A special quiz deserves a very special quizmaster, and joining us this week is the Richard Osman to our collective pointlessness. We have the host of the Trek Ranks podcast, and you may recognise him from that one time he fired the phasers on the Starship Enterprise. It's Jim Moorehouse.
Hey guys, great to be here. I did fire the phasers one time on Star Trek, yes, and I do host the Trek Ranks podcast. Track me down on Twitter at Trek Ranks or at Enterprise Extra. That's always how you can get me, and I identify he, him.
So Jim, you're not only bringing the questions for us tonight, but also the format for this quiz. Can you talk the listeners through how this is going to work?
Okay, so basically I broke it up into rounds for topics, and it's one question per person with the ability for the other person to steal. And we set it up so that it's a straight question with no multiple choice. So if you get that answer right, you get 4 points. If you decide you need a little help and need the multiple choice, I'll read those off, and then you get 2 points if you get it right. And of course, if you do not get the question right, then your opponent has a chance to steal, and they would get 1 point for the steal.
Well, are you ready, Katharine?
I'm ready when you are.
That's fighting talk, that is.
Okay, question number 1. So the first question goes to Katharine. What is the name of the episode in which Sarek is first seen to have a long-distance Katra connection with Michael Burnham?
Ooh, I'm going to struggle to pronounce the name of this episode. Oh, do I go for
Do you want the options, or are you going to go for...
Go for the safe. I'm going to play it safe for this first one.
There are 4 options here. Lethe, Battle at the Binary Stars, Context is for Kings, Into the Forest I Go.
Okay, so glad I went for the 4 options because I was thinking of the wrong thing. I'm going to go for Battle at the Binary Stars.
Ding, 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 ding! That is right. Well done, because you were going to go with Lethe, and I was like,
I was.
All right, so 2 points for Katharine. Kes, here's your question. What is the name of the episode in which Geordi LaForge is kidnapped by Romulans to assassinate a Klingon governor?
I know this episode. I love this episode, but what is it called?
What is the name of the episode?
Yeah, I know the episode so well.
You have the options.
I'm gonna need the options.
Okay, here are the 4 options: the enemy, the mind's eye, face of the enemy, the neutral zone.
The enemy.
Oh, I am so sorry. It is the mind's eye. It's a tricky one though, because he made friends with a Romulan in the enemy.
Yeah, I knew it was a Romulan one.
Yep.
That's the one where they're stranded on the planet, isn't it?
Yep. Name the species round. Kes, we're starting with you in this round.
Oh, exciting.
What is the name of the proto-Vulcan species featured in Who Watches the Watchers?
Again, I know this. I really do.
I'm so glad this is not my question.
I think I'm going to need the options.
Okay, here are the 4 options. The Pavans, the Mintakans, the Gagarins, or the Malkorians?
I'm sure it's the Mintakans.
You are correct, Kes.
Yes!
Great job. I'm so happy you got that. Okay, let's go to Katharine. What is the name of the godlike species that set up Kirk and Gorn to fight in Arena?
Oh, I'm going to need the options.
Okay, this is a original series question. The Melkoshians, the Ecosians, the Talosians, or the Metrons?
Metrons.
Metrons is correct.
Oh, phew.
And what character said the following line in the episode In the Cards from Deep Space Nine? Do you want to die? From
That would
Deep
be
Space
Dr.
Nine.
Elias Geiger.
Oh, well done.
What?
Spectacular.
There is probably no episode of Star Trek I have watched more times.
Sorry, Kes. Yours is difficult as well. What character said the following line in the episode Children of Time from Deep Space Nine? They existed. As long as we remember them, they always will.
All I can think of is The Next Generation.
I can give you the 4 options.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to, but already Katharine is so far ahead of me.
Kira, Dax, Cisco, O'Brien.
Process of elimination, I don't think it's O'Brien. I'm sure O'Brien would have been snarkier about it. O'Brien would have been like, well, they're dead now.
Superb reasoning.
I don't know, I think I'm going to go with Kira.
It is not Kira. We have a chance. Kes has missed the question, and now you have a chance to steal.
Amazing. It's a guess from me as well. Based on those 4 options, I'm going to say Cisco.
It was Cisco, indeed.
I should have trusted my gut.
Where Deep Space Nine is concerned, always go with your gut.
Okay, Kes, the Name the Planet round. What planet does the action take place on in the Enterprise episode 2 Days, 2 Nights?
I recently rewatched Enterprise, and I do kind of remember this episode. I think I spent a lot of time during this episode thinking about Riker, which I think means it was probably set somewhere that Riker would love. I'm so behind on points, I'm going to take a guess and say Riser.
Excellent reasoning, Kes. You nailed it. It is Riza. It is 4 points for Kes. Katharine, what planet does the action take place on in the TNG episode The Enemy?
Oh no. Like the only Romulan-ish planet I can even think of is Galorndon Core, because it's got such a ridiculous name. So I'm going to say that I was a big risk and go for 4 points.
Ding, 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 ding. You are correct.
Oh my god.
Sorry, Kes. I'm rooting for you now. Katharine, we're starting with you. Which captain was friends with Richard Galen?
Okay, you're going to have to give me the 4 options.
Okay, the 4 options. Friends with Richard Galen, Jonathan Archer, Christopher Pike, Jean-Luc Picard, Catherine Janeway.
I know this character.
No, the steal is on the board.
I'm going to guess Jonathan Archer.
I'm sorry, Katharine. We have a chance for a steal from Kes.
So I think, and I might be misremembering it here, and I'm going to make a complete fool out of myself, but my dad is an archaeologist, and I think that this particular character was also an archaeologist. I think he was Picard's archaeology instructor, so I'm going to say Jean-Luc Picard.
Absolutely correct. Known as...
Yes! Oh, that's the most obscure thing I've ever remembered from Star Trek.
known as Professor Galen in the episode, but his actual name is Richard Galen. Kes, here is your Name the Captain round question. Which captain was friends with Calvin Hudson?
Can I get the options, please?
James T. Kirk, Benjamin Sisko, Jonathan Archer, Gabriel Lorca.
Random guessing here. I'm gonna say Cisco.
Correct answer. 2 points.
I only picked Cisco because I didn't last time, and it would have been a winning one.
This is the tough round. The ridiculously hard number to recall round. Katharine, in the episode Little Green Men, what time does the nuclear bomb test in 1947 Nevada detonate?
I think I'm going to need 4 options to help me.
Okay, the 4 options for the time of the nuclear bomb test in Little Green Men: 5 a.m., 8 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m.
Okay, well, I think it was kind of dawn time in the episode, so I'm going to go with 5 a.m.
I am so impressed. It's really good. Kes. When Worf is on the phaser range in Redemption and he's joined by Guinan, he says that he practices at X level. And she says, I guess I could come down to that level. What level does Worf practice at?
I really want to claw back some points, so I'm going to see if I can get it with a guess. I think it's like over 10, but it's less than 50.
That would give you 1 chance in 40.
I think it might be in the teens, so that gives me...
That would give you 1 chance in 7. I'm just going to say your reasoning has been spot on so far.
14.
Oh my
As a guess.
God. Oh my God, it is 14.
I'm the luckiest nerd alive.
Level
wow.
14. Kes, starting with you, this is the Guess the Quadrant round. Which quadrant would you find the Brunali homeworld?
Beta quadrant.
You guessed Beta Quadrant. That is incorrect. I am sorry. Katharine.
You would find the Brunali in the Delta Quadrant?
The Delta Quadrant is correct. That's our friend Icheb. Okay, Katharine, guess the quadrant round. What quadrant would you find the planet Karama?
That would be the Gamma Quadrant.
Oh, you're killing it. You are killing it. That one was too easy for you. Who flies the ship? Katharine, who is at the helm of the NCC 1031? We need a full name here.
A flash of inspiration, so I'm going to risk it. I'm going to say, is it Michaela Detmer?
Oh, Kes, you're so happy right now because she is like so close, but it's technically not correct. It's Kayla Detmer, not Michaela. Who is at the helm of the NCC 74656?
So I think it's Voyager. Tom Paris.
Okay. This is the Name the Klingon round. Name the Klingon.
Oh, I am going to suck at this, and Katharine is going to do so well.
Okay, well, Kes, you are up first. What Klingon served as Worf's Chadich?
Oh, yeah, I recently watched this episode. For a while, Picard was his Chadich, but then his brother was his Chadich. So what on earth was his brother's name? That's the question. And I can see his face. I remember that episode. I literally, because this is series 3 of TNG, so I watched it 2.5 weeks ago.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I think I need the 4 options.
Okay, here they are. It's Alexander Rozhenko, Gowron, Kern, or Kalar?
Okay, well, it's definitely not the first 2. It really is just a 50-50 guess, so I'm going to go with Kern.
Good guess. I don't think you would have lived down picking Kalar, his Parmakai, over Kern, his brother. 2 points.
Yay! Fantastic.
Okay, Katharine. What Klingon once investigated getting a berth on a Nyberite Alliance cruiser?
Oh, that would be our friend Mr. Worf.
Oh, man, you are good. You are good. We have one final round. This is the sport-related question from your favorite series round. That's what this one is. Okay, so Katharine, starting with you, what baseball team did Cassidy Yates' brother play for?
The Pike City Pioneers.
You are too good. Who won the hand of poker scene at the beginning of the episode Descent?
This is a much harder one. Yeah, it was Data, and there were some famous people there.
Yes.
Could I have the 4 options, please?
The 4 options are Sir Isaac Newton, Data, Albert Einstein, and Stephen Hawking.
I think it was Stephen Hawking.
It is Stephen Hawking, the only person to play himself on Star Trek.
Yeah, as soon as you said that, I seem to recall the mechanized hand thing coming down with the cards.
Game of Geeks.
It was quite a battle, and the final score is 24-21. That's not bad.
This week's winner is Katharine.
I feel like I did a lot better than I thought I was going to. Thank you for being such a fantastic quizmaster.
I had a blast. Thanks, guys.
So much fun.
Too much fun.
Well, I'm sure we have some other Trek fans listening to the show, so tell us a little bit about your Trek podcast.
So, Trek Ranks is a podcast about all the reasons we love Star Trek. I started a podcast where we just talk about the things that we love about specific episodes, topics, everything from top 5 Doctors to top 5 Picard Season 1 moments. Top 5 coolest episode titles that you can think of, or the top 5 shapes.
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to my next appearance on Trek Ranks. I'm going to be working on my picks all day tomorrow. So where can folks find Trek Ranks if they want to have a listen?
And everyone can find Trek Ranks at trekranks.com, or all your podcast players of choice. Just search Trek Ranks, and you can track me down on Twitter to talk Star Trek anytime at Trek Ranks or at Enterprise Extra. Pew pew!
Well, Jim, thank you so much for joining us and being part of this wonderful quiz.
Thank you, guys. So much fun.
Well, we have had some amazing guests on this evening, but none have challenged me quite as much as Jim there. It was inevitable that you would win, really, and I wonder how many listeners we have completely alienated by talking about Star Trek. During our lovely trans panel earlier, 2 of our guests mentioned Star Wars, and none Star Trek. So I think maybe next time we come back with another episode, we should maybe try and do a Star Wars quiz.
Yeah.
Or maybe we should get listeners to pitch what they think we should be quizzed about. Like what our mastermind special topic should be, like a couple of weeks in advance, and then we can find another guest quizmaster to come on. I was frankly amazed that I got some of those questions. And a shout out to Toxic ML in the chat, Will, who was busy trying their best to distract me from the quiz, and I got momentarily drawn into the chat before I had to pull back and concentrate.
Nothing quite disrupts your reasoning skills. Having to take part in the chat.
You've said get your Horgan ready. What is that?
Horgon. It's the little fertility statue that you display on Riser.
Oh, yes. I remember the episode in... I'm not going to talk about Star Trek, but I remember the episode where Riker asked Picard to get him a Horgan, and it's very funny. It's very cheesy, yes. Riker. And Tech Taster said that we should absolutely do a quiz about pot noodles.
Okay, I could be up for that.
Well, I'd be quite happy to just eat some pot noodles, to be honest.
Although I don't know how that would come across on air.
No, but then back in the day when we did other episodes of the show, we had a lot of food episodes. We had a guest on that did pancake art, and we made live pancakes, not living pancakes. That sounded a bit weird, but we made pancakes live on air.
Yes, yeah, that was a good segment. Yeah, I do like making a pancake.
Well, we had 2 of the amazing bakers from the Great British Bake Off, going back to I don't know, this must have been 2016, and we had Andrew and Tom from Bake Off come in and use insects to bake us a cake.
The things we used to do. That was brilliant.
But it was making a really interesting point about the fact that in order to live a bit more sustainably as a species, humans need to embrace eating alternative sources of protein and fibre. And so eating things like crickets and mealworms and using like cricket flour and things was actually a really, really good thing for us to do for the planet. And of course, when we challenged Bake Off stars to come and do that with us, they were well up for it. I have very fond memories of that cake, but then I have lots of fond memories of cake. Cake.
I rather liked the tacos with crickets.
The taco crickets were very, very good. I would absolutely love to have Tom and Andrew back on a future episode of the show. Particularly, Andrew in particular has become quite an LGBTQ plus rights activist. I think perhaps at the time that we spoke to Andrew on the show, I don't think he was publicly out about that. So I'd love to get a sort of queer baking thing going on sometime.
That sounds awesome. I'd be up for that.
Yeah, I'll have to send him a text and see what's going on. But now I'm just hungry, so I think I might have to sort some food out after this. But what it probably won't be, I'll be honest with you, what it's not going to be is a giant tube of penne pasta that has once had toilet roll wrapped around it.
Well, no, because that doesn't exist yet. We've got to find out whether or not anyone would be up for panic buying it before we invest.
Yeah, and just a reminder for those people listening, there is a lot of interesting stuff happening in the world at the moment, and we've seen headlines that pretty much sound like this.
Worried customers have been snapping up everything in sight.
Shelves stripped bare and there wasn't a toilet roll in sight.
Items like toilet roll and pasta are now increasingly hard to come by.
Panic buying. Panic buying. Panic buying.
Panic buying and
panic buying.
You don't have to buy so much. Take it easy. Just relax.
So people have been panic buying.
Oh, they have, haven't they?
I was
but
very...
would they panic buy?
Sorry, go on.
But would they panic buy our stuff?
I don't know. I was very encouraged. I had to go to the supermarket again a couple of days ago to stock up for the house, and I went quite early in the day. I thought I'd change tack, so I skived off work for an hour and went and got some shopping, and the shelves were a lot fuller than they had been before. Crucially, there was a lot more toilet roll than I'd seen before, and I got it was so surprising to me to see toilet roll on the shelves again after all this time, because it had only been 3 weeks, but it felt like 10 years. And I noticed the packaging for toilet roll for the first time. Have you ever looked at a toilet roll packet?
I guess. I usually look to see like how many sheets are on the roll, because I'm a bit of a nerd.
But why are 9 out of 10 brands of toilet roll advertised by animals? Right, there are cute kittens on some of them. They're normally fluffy and white. There are dogs on some of them. Charmin has a bear. You know, I collected that bear back in the day. Why? Why is toilet roll advertised by animals? I mean, we don't wipe ourselves on animals, right? I mean, if anyone is listening that does that, please stop. Please stop.
You're reminding me of an old joke about a bear who's going to the toilet in the woods, and there's a little rabbit next to him doing the same, and the bear turns to the rabbit and says, "Oh, do you find that, you know, after you've been to the toilet, you've got a lot of, you know, nasty stuff stuck to your fur?" And the rabbit just goes, "No." So the bear picks up the rabbit and wipes his bottom.
Wow, I can't believe I've gone my entire life without hearing that story. I guess, Thank you.
So I think, you know, people want us to think that their toilet roll is as soft as a kitten.
But I've had kittens, and yeah, they're soft, but they're only really cuddly and cute when they're asleep. I mean, I don't want my toilet roll to say to me, "Pick me up and I'll claw the heck out of your arm." Yes,
Yeah,
I said arm.
Kittens can't retract their claws. They haven't learned how to do that yet.
Well, no, and one would hope that my toilet roll does not have claws, and if it does, has learned how to retract them.
Oh, my goodness. Well, let's hope it can at least retract the pasta.
And puppies just lick your face.
Oh,
Why
no,
would you
let's
want
not bring licking into
that?
this.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's weird, and I think that now that we've had to wipe the slate clean, no pun intended, with toilet roll, we need to get serious about packaging. Let's not have animals advertising toilet roll. Why this is a soapbox I have decided to jump on, I don't know. But there we go. That is what boil in the bag has made me think anyway. Boil in the bog, rather.
So, should we find out what our listeners thought?
Yes, let's end the poll. I shall ramble a little bit here while Katharine ends the poll and we get our wonderful results so that we know what you, our listeners, would rather get out of Boil in the Bog, Donut of Solitude, and Zoom Foregrounds.
So, do you want me to read this? Do you want me to count up to the winner and reveal the winner, or count down?
Count up. We'll reveal
up to
the
the winner
last. Yes.
Okay. So, dead last with 0% of the vote was Boil in the Bog.
What? Nobody. 0 people voted for Boil in the Bog.
Nobody wants to eat pasta that has spent a substantial amount of time in the bathroom.
Well, I'm kind of glad because I've got brown sauce and I've never used it. I can't stand the stuff.
Nice bit of brown. Coming in second place was the Donut of Solitude.
Oh, so that was my favourite.
Yeah, with 23% of the vote.
I think mostly because the robot fell in love with me.
Mm-hmm. And also donuts. But our winner, our runaway winner with 77% of the vote was Zoom Foregrounds.
Hey! Wow. That's amazing. So everyone is far more interested in not looking like crap on a video call than they ever would be having something to help them with social distancing.
Yeah.
Well, at least humans and our vanity is predictable.
Indeed.
Absolutely incredible. So thank you all so much for voting and taking part in our Would You Panic Buy It segment. All of those skits for the Boil in the Bag, Donut of Solitude and Zoom Foregrounds will be available on our YouTube channel shortly after the show. So if you want to listen back to any of the individual features from during this show, our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/GKLYCO, will have all of the various little components of the show in it. It also has all of the various stuff that we've done for all of the other 60 shows that we have done in the past. So feel free, if you're looking for something new to binge on, to gorge on our previous content. And speaking of the previous Bake Off episode, we've got some bits and pieces of video as well as all of the baking features from that episode too. And yeah, I'm very excited that we've done this comeback episode. How have you felt about it, Katharine?
Yeah, it's been lovely, and yeah, I think it's been nice to sort of dust off this thing we call Geekly and kind of give it a spring airing.
Well, yes, absolutely. And it's been so lovely to talk to all of our amazing listeners and to have so many absolutely wonderful guests on the show. And so sort of thank you to all of them. Wow. Look at the time.
Yeah, I don't often say that while living in lockdown.
Yeah, I don't even really know what day it is, let alone what time it is.
Yeah, quite. And it's been such a huge show. So I just want to reiterate what Kes said, and a huge thanks to all our special guests and everyone that's taken part in the chat and just made the show what it is.
It has been so much fun dusting off the show called Geekly and giving it a good spring clean. It is indeed a shame that we let it get so dusty.
Yeah, we will have to not leave it quite so long until the next one.
We've already got some messages in the chat saying, any chance of another episode in a couple of weeks, please? Ooh. So, well, Katharine and I will have to see what we can do. We won't leave it quite so long until the next one.
Yeah, and whenever it is that we do come back, we'll be looking forward to having you with us.
Yes, indeed. So take care, stay inside, and keep in touch.
Yeah, stay safe, everyone.
Well, from me, Kes.
And from me, Katharine.
Goodbye!
Bye!
Goodbye!
Bye!
You've been listening to the Geekly Chronicles, which was produced and hosted by Katharine Robinson and Kestrel Guyan. In this special lockdown episode, the announcer was voiced by Joshua Hein and the voice of the boring guy by Sam Upton. The Donut of Solitude was voiced by Magda Steele. Our guests on this show were Jim Moorehouse, Marna Gilligan, Ben Saunders, Jacob Edward, Jane Fay, and V. Wegman, all of whom gave up their time freely to talk with us and spread their awesomeness to you, our listeners. The Geekly Chronicles has been an independent production for your ears, minds, and souls. Any reference to viruses living or dead was purely an error. We kindly ask you to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds after listening to this podcast. Stay safe, stay well, and remain indoors.